Musím povedať, že aj napriek tomu, že bolo agrárnou krajinou a bez telefonického pokrytia a akéhokoľvek stupňa digitalizácie, okamžite si po zmene režimu a osamostatnení našlo cestu ku komunikačným a informačným technológiám a dnes je doslova tigrom v IT. Áno, reč je o Estónsku, ak by ste to niektorí nevedeli. Krajine, z ktorej vzýšlo veľa úspešných startupov a verím, že niektoré z nich vás doslova živia. Spomeniem taký Bolt Food, ktorý nám nosí stravu a obedy priamo domov. Aj ten je z Estónska. Dnes sú v tejto krajine služby pre obyvateľov naozaj na veľmi, veľmi vysokej úrovni a my môžeme tejto krajine len závidieť. Ale nezávidme, poďme sa ňou inšpirovať. Som rád, že pozvanie sem k nám na SlovakiaTech prijala riaditeľka pre obchodný rozvoj v programe e-Residency of Estonia, pani Ülane Vilumets. A ja len skrátke poviem, že je v rámci tohto e-residency aj možnosť vytvoriť teda digitálnu identitu, vydávanú samozrejme vládou a tá umožňuje podnikateľom z akéhokoľvek miesta na zemi vytvoriť a založiť spoločnosť a riadiť spoločnosť, komunikovať so štátom, so sídlom v Európskej únii bez papierov a všetko plne online. Je to náš sen aj na Slovensku, ktorý by mohol zlepšiť podnikateľské prostredie. Nech sa páči, stage is yours.
I don't know what he said, but I hope it was good. So my name is Ülane, and I work for the e-residency program of Estonian government. But make no mistake, I'm not here as a typical public sector employee, because from 2012, I was actually building my own tech startup. So I'm here as a former entrepreneur and also a current co-owner of a tourism company. I just happen to now be on a mission for my own country. So for those of you that maybe don't know so much about Estonia, here's a little introduction. Welcome to Estonia. Estonia is a tiny country. In size, we are about the same size as Slovakia, but only a quarter of the population. So in the Northern Europe, there's only 1.3 million people in this country. It is a country that is very naturally, very much nature. We have over 2,000 lakes. We have 700 bears, which is in Europe like one of the biggest bear colonies. We also have a very digital society. So what this means is that our digital services allow us to do almost anything in our daily lives. And we have 10 unicorn companies, so these are companies that are valued at more than 1 billion euros. So if you don't know anything else about Estonia, you might have used one of those company services, right? Like you are probably using Bolt to get around here in Slovakia as well. Maybe some of you use Pipedrive for managing your sales and your deals. Probably your parents used Skype. Nobody uses Skype anymore, right? They kind of lost it when Microsoft bought them. But these are all the companies that have an Estonian connection. And I believe that one of the biggest things why all these companies come out of Estonia is actually that in the early 90s, we made a conscious choice to put our energy into IT. And sorry to say, but the reality is that coming out of Soviet Union, we were actually so poor that we had to have an efficient state, because having a big state costs a lot of money if you have only 1.3 million people, right? So we have rebranded ourselves as e-Estonia. And this is a timeline of how we have built these services. So in 2000, the first public service we took fully online was the tax board. And I graduated from high school in 2001, so the only way I've known declaring taxes is by logging on and seeing that the government already knows how much you made last year. And they also most probably know what you can deduct. So things you've given to charity, things that you can get taxes back from, it's already in there. So for a lot of people, tax declaration since 2000 has looked like this. Confirm, confirm, submit. Because there's nothing to be added there. Then in 2002, we introduced the digital signature. And what this is in reality is that we have an ID card, which is a smart card. And it is not only to prove our identity in real life, you know, like a usual passport works, like you show your photo and you show your face, and this is how people know that it's you. But this is attached to, you know, the physical card and a PIN 1 and a PIN 2. So you actually sign with this, and you represent yourself in the online world. So this is basically the basis for all of those other digital services, because this is how we log on. And the interesting thing is that we made this card compulsory. It's mandatory in Estonia to have this card. And this is a very courageous step to make, because obviously people were not happy in 2002 that their government says that, okay, you need to have this. This is compulsory. So it was a very sudden step, and people were joking even that you can use this to open beer bottles, right? So like not much else use. But when you make it compulsory, then all the rest of the infrastructure starts following. So for example, from 2005, we have been the first country in the world that allows parliamentary elections to all of its population online. We do it the same way with this digital ID. In 2014, we introduced e-residency, which is essentially the same card, but for foreigners, without a photo. But I'll talk about this a little later. And in 2017, we took our data to a data embassy. Guess in which country? Obviously Luxembourg, right? What else? So our data, our government databases are backed up in Luxembourg. And now we're already talking about invisible services, or what we call proactive services. So what happened when I had my last child is that I was in the hospital bed, and I registered my child's birth in the hospital bed online, proving my identity from there. Now, the system shot out a notification to my partner, said that somebody has marked you as a father of this child, you know, like Facebook, right? And you know, do you want to accept this fatherhood? So he's like, okay, yeah, accept. Like it was our fourth baby, so he was fine with it, right? So basically, this is how, you know, this is how services do things for you. And after that, they shot out an email to me from the Social Security office. They say, so we see you have this baby now. Here are the benefits that you're eligible for. Please tick the boxes, say whether it's going to be you or your partner who's going to be receiving those benefits, who's going to stay home with the baby. So I don't have to know, as a citizen, I don't have to know what I have to do. They would tell me what I have to do. The same goes with medical services, for example. So I go give a blood test. The next day, I can log on myself and see whether the results are there, and then I can call my doctor, and my doctor can look at the results, and then they prescribe me a medicine. And I would go to the pharmacy, and the pharmacy would already have the prescription. I wouldn't have to carry a paper with me. So I prove my identity there, they put it in a machine, and they say, yeah, you have this medicine, your child has this medicine. So this is how it works in Estonia. And so what we thought is that, okay, if we have come to a point where we have taken all of our services online, and the people who live in Estonia, they all use them. So the penetration is extremely high, and we save a lot of money with this. Maybe, just maybe, there are other people in the world who might benefit from this as well. So we thought, okay, so like what is our ecosystem like for businesses? And maybe we can export some of that with this e-residency program. So e-residency essentially is a way to tap into Estonian business ecosystem. And these are just some of the benefits that you can use by being an e-resident. You can create a company in Estonia. If you're outside the EU, you might have your EU representation in Estonia, through Estonia. You could live in Singapore, you could live in US, but you could use these services online just the same way as our citizens can. We also have a very lively ecosystem for our startups. So this is something that you can learn from, and by being part of this, having your company in Estonia, this might help grow new companies, new investments into the future. So we decided to basically take advantage of this moment. And startups want to be where business is made very easy for them. So these are other countries and how long it takes to start a company in them. In Estonia, once you have a digital ID, it literally takes you about 20 minutes to go through the registration of a company. I've done this many times together with some foreigners who have a lot of questions, and even then we can do it in 20 minutes. We aimed to break the world record 2 years ago in London, on London Tech Week stage, and there was an Austrian e-resident on stage who was establishing a company right then and there, And it took him 15 minutes and 33 seconds while the public Wi-Fi broke 3 times. Right? The organizers insisted that it's going to be fine with the Wi-Fi. They wouldn't give us a cord. So the internet broke 3 times. He had to start again. His face was very sweaty, but he still did it in 15 minutes and 33 seconds. But we don't like to compare ourselves to countries where it's slow. This is Germany still in 2022, right? Like you raise an investment round with 30 investors, angels, VCs around the table. 24,000 printed pages are mailed to them collectively by the notary. And I mean, like, why would we compare ourselves to this? So we like to compare ourselves to some of the most valued business environments in the world. And where we do best is obviously the speed of getting your business out there in the registry. We do really well with the requirements, because for somebody from outside the country, there's not a lot of restrictions or not a lot of red tape to start a company in Estonia. Countries like Singapore, for example, require you to have a resident director. You have to have somebody on your board that's living there in Singapore. And this creates friction. So we don't require much from somebody to start a company. We just want them to have the digital ID so we know that they are them. We also do really well in the e-services. Here, Singapore comes pretty close to Estonia. They have a very streamlined infrastructure for digital services for businesses as well. And obviously, the level of bureaucracy. And this is an index that is calculated. How many hours does it take for an average business per year to do their taxes? In Estonia, it's about 50 hours. You can see the other countries, but there's a country in the world where the same number is 1,700 hours a year. So you can just, I'm not gonna tell you what that country is, but you can just imagine the level of bureaucracy is very different in countries. So what is e-residency? E-residency is essentially the same digital ID, digital identity that our citizens have, but without the real-life identity. So you don't have a picture on it, you cannot use it for other things. You can sign documents digitally, you can do business digitally, and you can be part of a global community of entrepreneurs who all use the same infrastructure in Estonia. But what it is not, and this is also very important to note, is that it's not an actual travel document. You cannot get a citizenship to Estonia. The name causes some confusion sometimes. So like you say e-residency, and people think that they actually become a resident or a tax resident of the country. No, you don't. It's simply a digital ID that allows you to access Estonia. And why do we give this to foreigners? Obviously, we hope that this will bring us economic growth, because the more smart businesses come into Estonia, the more jobs are created, the better we will do, the richer we will hopefully become. We also like to share what we have built to the rest of the world and be a forerunner in some of those things. And obviously, as a tiny country, we have a bit of a complex, so we want to make sure that people know that we exist. This 1.3 million people exist. And as for the real results, the e-resident founded companies have actually brought in over 100 million euros of direct economic impact. And how we calculate this, we calculate how many jobs they've created in Estonia and how many taxes have been paid from these jobs and from dividend profit taxes. So we take those tax amounts and we consider this the income for the country from the program. So this is a total. Last year we brought in 68 million euros to Estonian state budget. We also consider this a very, very big PR project for the country. So advertising value equivalence, we calculated in 2020, and this media attention to e-residency that we have gotten thanks to this project equals over 380 million euros of paid advertising if we would like to get the same access to the same audiences. So it's been a massive PR project. Today, 20% of the companies that are founded every year are founded by e-residents, and in tech startup sector, it's even higher. 30% of startups in Estonia have an e-resident founder on the team as well. So the tech sector even benefits more. Just some numbers. There's over 100,000 e-residents that have started over 32,000 companies in Estonia. We get roughly over 1,000 new applications every month and between 300 and 400 new companies every month. So this is August numbers. And we have created a marketplace of services that help to serve these businesses, which is an indirect economic impact to Estonia. Expert accounting firms and companies that can serve these companies are all brought together in this e-residency marketplace. So we are a small country, and Tallinn is about 400,000 people. If we look at the other cities in Estonia, then e-residents have become the second biggest town in Estonia. So bigger than Tartu. And it's not the only thing. It's not only the digital ID that we have given to startups. It's also different schemes for easier employment, so startup visa and scale-up visa. What they give you is an opportunity to bring, for example, tech employees from other countries. Within European Union, it's easy, you know, like all of you could just move around here within the union and you could be employed by another company. But this doesn't solve the shortage of tech employees. So we have introduced these visa schemes that it's easier for startups to hire from abroad. We also have a really good legislation for sharing the success of your company back to the employees. A lot of countries tax stock options at the moment when you give them to the employees, so they have to file this as an actual, like something that is worth money and pay taxes from it. In Estonia, we tax them once there is an actual exit of the company. So when you can sell those shares, when they first vest into real stocks, and then when you actually exit the company, then is when the taxation happens. Obviously, the startup ecosystem I already mentioned, a very flexible labor legislation, and this is why we have 10 unicorns. But there was another thing we did in 2000, and it also relates to this bureaucracy, is that we decided that how to attract foreign companies to Estonia, we should also change the tax system. So in 2000, we also introduced a very different tax system to most countries. We don't tax profit on annual basis. We tax profits only when you decide to distribute the profit to the shareholders. So what this means is that until you keep the profit in the company and keep reinvesting and growing the business, there is no taxation. And this actually was something that has been voted the most competitive tax code in OECD countries. So we have no tax on reinvested profits, and when you do distribute profits, it is a flat rate tax. There is not many exceptions. The tax code is only about 30 pages. All of you could read through it. And taxes can be obviously declared and paid online. And the tax board itself is a very approachable organization. So they even have a designated email for non-resident company owners. You could email to non-resident at tax board domain, and you could ask whether you're doing it right. So it's a very approachable organization. And you don't have to believe me, because obviously I get paid to say this stuff about my country, but you can believe some others. Somebody who coincidentally comes from the country that puts a 1,700-hour tax burden on an entrepreneur. Edilson is from that country, and he has established his tech company in Estonia, and this is what he thinks. We have moved on to the next stage where we try to really include these foreign founders into our ecosystem. So we actually take them around in Estonia every spring. This was our last study trip. So these are all tech founders that we took around Tallinn to be introduced to VCs, to be introduced to different accelerator programs, and to really learn about the Estonian ecosystem. So if you're here as a startup founder, maybe you want to join me next May. And this is it from me. I will be happy to answer some questions from here. Or do you want to choose for me which questions?
No, you can choose. Like every questions.
What percentage of population actually utilizes the option to use the ID card and communicate with the state digitally? So I think declaring taxes is a great example. As you saw on one of my slides, 95% of the population declared their taxes online. And this includes my 65-year-old parents. So there is a really high adoption of using this ID card, and it is really used in everyday life as well. I can see that I need to take my e-residency kit in person and validate my fingerprints on site in just 50 locations. No location in Slovakia, so anywhere. There's an embassy in Prague, and in Budapest as well. The reason why you have to go to a physical place, that is what makes this ID secure. You probably use DocuSign, right? So DocuSign sends you an email. You can forward this email to anyone. Anyone can type in their name in the field. You know, so why this is the highest security level according to EIDAS, E-I-D-A-S, digital identities regulation in Europe, is because there is an actual face-to-face authentication happening in this process. So you have to pick it up in person. You will prove your identity with a different photo ID on spot, and they will take your biometrics. So biometrics is captured. And we are working on getting actually remote verification live as well, which means that at any point in time, we could check whether you are you using this card on the other side and by proving that your fingerprints or your facial recognition on the other side. So this is why it's safe, and this is why it has legal value. Your signature is equal to handwritten signature, and you can do everything. You sign your employment contracts and everything else.
QE third, maybe. Maybe second.
Does Estonia accept registration? So qualified electronic? No, is that you mean qualified electronic signatures?
Yes.
Yeah. So this our one is, like I said, the safest qualified electronic signature within the EU, and I think, according to this EIDAS Act, are supposed to accept other member states' qualified electronic signatures just as other countries are supposed to take ours. In reality, I think in most countries in Europe, it's not happening today. So it's on paper, right? But in Estonia, we do. We believe in digital signatures.
Okay, I think it's already time out. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.